concept. And I want my body to be able to burn both carbs and fat for energy. And I think most diets, most American diets for sure, are in that carb burning mode. Like that fat switch in the liver is off. So this was just a really neat way for me to measure to see if my carb fasting approach to diet is working or not. And so I breathe in this thing in the morning. So you breathe in, you hold your breath, and you breathe out. And then it gives you a score from 1 to 5. So it will actually measure metabolic flexibility. So it will measure whether you're all carbs, a little bit of carbs, fat and carbs, mostly fat, or all fat, essentially, because our bodies are never burning 100% on one end of the spectrum. I think we want them to move back and forth. But if we have a lot of weight to lose, specifically fat to lose, we want to sort of activate our metabolism. We want to turn that fat switch on in the liver. We can do that through carb fasting. So this is just a very simple way. It's almost like you're probably familiar with the keto diet. Well, it's keto for a day, not for a lifetime. So like I choose to use the keto diet a few days a week because it's sustainable. I don't think that I would be able to keto or carnivore the rest of my life. And with these diets, once you commit to them, like once you marry them, you don't want to get a divorce because your metabolic flexibility will get totally messed up. Your hormones and your body won't know what to do, which macro it should burn, fat or carbs. So carb fasting allows my body to move between burning fat and carbs. And this device is just the easiest way for me to measure that on a daily basis.
How else could you measure it other than a meal?
Yeah, I mean, you could do ketone strips. So you could go in the bathroom and do a urine sample. You could use a CGM, so a continuous blood glucose monitor. So lower blood glucose levels in the morning would dictate that your body should be burning more fat than carbs. But I think this is just the easiest, cleanest, most simple way to do that. It's pretty inexpensive. And again, it just puts this gamification component to it. Like the mobile app is really cool because you open it up each morning. You can do it in the morning. You can do it before a meal, after a meal. So initially when I got this, so I did it multiple times a day. Now I basically do it in the mornings primarily, maybe in the evening before I go to bed. But it will tell me literally whether I'm a 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. And you love to blow a 1 or a 2 because your body's mostly burning fats for energy. And I can see in real time, like how my carb fasting the day before really dramatically affected my body switching that fat switch, turning on and actually burning more fat than carbs. But it will recommend a low, medium, or carb day. So I think its low carbs are 105 grams or less. Medium is 100 to maybe 150 or 180. And then, heavy carbs or carb loading days are, a few hundred grams or more. I sort of just look at low carb or no carb. So I carb fast, which is essentially 20 to 30 grams a day or less. And then I just have regular carb days. So I just go back and forth between sort of like eating a regular healthy diet, as healthy as I can. And that doesn't mean you can't actually enjoy a cheeseburger or some pizza, but you probably shouldn't eat the whole pizza. So if I eat super high in carbs, then I'll notice my metabolic flexibility will ping at this high end for a day or two or more. So that's why I go back and forth. Essentially Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays are carb fasting days in our house.
So since you got this thing and started paying more attention, what have you noticed? Have you lost weight?
Yeah, so when I started to carb fast, that's when my body's sort of metabolic flexibility improved. I went to the gym for years. I thought I was committed to health, but I was only interested in my diet. And so when I started to apply carb fasting, so before I got this device, so I noticed the weight was just coming off. So the gym activity was exactly the same. My dietary approach changed or evolved, and the weight and the fat specifically just started to melt off my body. This device gave me like the real-time, insight that I needed a few months after I started that, to just realize that this dietary approach to life, it's not really a diet. I'm not a big fan of diets, but this approach to eating was just the right way for me, for sure.
So what is the Lumen? What is that?
Yeah, so this little device looks like a vape. but essentially it measures the CO2 level, so the carbon dioxide in my breath. So lower levels means that I'm burning, more fat for energy. So yeah, it's just a really cool little device that sort of puts a gamification component to this metabolic flexibility concept. And I want my body to be able to burn both carbs and fat for energy.
Well, hi guys, welcome to this week's coaching call. This is week 2. We're going to be talking about eating. That's what we've been focusing on this week in this module. And things are a little bit different this week. You can probably see Greg is not here with me in person. I'm here in our Brunswick studio. But Greg, where are you?
I am in Las Vegas at the Bellagio, and we have the beautiful pool right behind me, and then I think that's Aria behind the pool. So yeah, super cool to be out on the West Coast here this morning. It's 9 a.m. out here, so it's noon your time.
Right. Yeah. You having a good time out there?
Oh yeah, it's fun. So one of my companies, Real Flow Technology Company, was up for a technology award, like an innovation award at this big real estate conference. And yesterday, the ceremony was yesterday around noon, our time. We didn't win, unfortunately. We were a bridesmaid, but not the bride this time around. But it was cool to be nominated and up for that award for sure.
That's awesome. That's sweet. So we are we're going to be talking all about what we're eating, how to eat for energy, how to trigger fat burning. In week 1 of H40, the rhythm that we were focused on building was a morning routine. So hopefully you've been able to keep up with that as part of your minimum acceptable day, and you've been crossing off X's on your MAD calendar. And I hope that that's feeling easier too. Now, 2 weeks in, maybe your body's starting to adjust, your circadian rhythm. Maybe you don't need an alarm, or you find yourself waking up just before your alarm. Hopefully that's getting easier for you. And then this week, the rhythm that you tried to implement, hopefully, was carb fasting. That's what we talked about a lot in the EAT module. And we're going to get deep on that today. So I want to start, Greg, with a question. You've talked about this idea that there's something that we do for 17 minutes a day that has sort of an outsized impact on the other 23 and a half hours of our day. So dive into that. What is that? What are the 17 minutes that have the biggest influence?
Yeah, well, that's the amount of time that the average person would spend eating each day. So putting food and drink in our mouth and actually enjoying food. A lot of us, I think, eat for enjoyment, for joy. Some of us eat for like medication, self-medication. Some of us eat for that dopamine rush, and certain foods are designed and built to have a physiological impact, like a chemical reaction in the brain, and actually to make us crave that food more and more and more. And I think this concept of so what are the biggest levers we have when it comes to our health, improving our physical and our mental health? A lot of people think they associate food and they know they should eat healthier to become physically healthier, but the foods we eat might even have a bigger impact on our mental health than our physical health, but clearly they have a massive impact on both. And so you're right, Tony, we started with Adam last week. So a morning routine, like you happening to the day instead of letting the day happen to you, that's a lever that we can pull. That's one of the big levers that we can pull to improve our health, mental, physical, environmental. What we eat is a huge lever, probably the biggest lever, and then next week we talk about move, we talk about biohacking, we talk about optimizing our environment, we talk about rest and sleep. These are all levers, but I really want us to really pay attention, focus this week on what we eat, what we're putting into our bodies for 17 minutes a day. And now my son, Manny, probably is 12 to 13 minutes a day. He's super fast, right? And if you're slow, yeah, exactly. If you're a slow eater, it might be 20 minutes, 22 minutes a day. But if you think about just strategically think about, like if we're eating chocolate, if we're eating a cheeseburger, a piece of pizza, we're getting this sensation while we're eating. Right, it's a few seconds, and it's literally going to be a few minutes of enjoyment while it's going in, but potentially affecting us for a few hours or even the rest of the day. So I think when we talk about eating for energy, energy, pay attention, awareness, and the timing or the order in which we eat our foods, man, that's like the biggest lever that we can control. And from a personal impact story, like I thought I was pretty committed to health for the past 10, 15, even 20 years. I've been pretty consistently going to the gym and exercising, moving, building muscle. But it wasn't until I realized that, I was committed to that physical activity, but I was only interested in my diet, to be brutally honest. And when I changed my diet, not went on a diet, but changed my dietary approach to food, which we're going to be talking about. That's when really everything changed for me. And that's when, like, you know, that 20 to 30 pounds of fat that I had accumulated over 20 years, it just came off relatively easy. And you know, I wasn't doing anything else. Then I changed how I looked at food mentally, and that's made all the difference. And I think, like, if we look at the metabolic system, a big part of this week's training is our metabolism. Like, people think we're stuck. We have a metabolism, right?
Yeah.
And we think the older we get, the more it slows down. And that is generally what happens. However, do you know any 50-year-olds that have higher metabolisms than 20-year-olds? Of course. I mean, like our metabolism is something that can be changed and hacked and improved. And though most adults, you know, once you get past your mid-20s, you know, your metabolism goes from, you know, third, fourth, fifth gear down to, you know, second or first gear. That's why it's so hard to lose weight for most people, because we're eating the wrong things. And it's like, when it comes to metabolism, like, you have, Tony, a basal metabolic rate, right? You have a rate of calories that you're going to burn even with no exercise. So when you wake up in the morning, and
being alive.
Yeah, just by being alive and just by doing what you're doing, you know, so you get X amount of steps a day, and you're going to have some physical activity. Your brain is going to use calories to think. Your digestive system is going to use calories to digest the food that you just put into your mouth. You use energy. So I think this concept of basal metabolic rate, a lot of health gurus will say that to lose weight, it's as simple as calories in, calories out. And it's not just as simple as that. If we lived in a vacuum, if we lived in one 24-hour period, that statement would make sense. But since our basal metabolic rate can like improve, right? If you're burning 2,000 calories a day, but you're eating the right foods, high proteins, healthy fats, carb fasting, which we'll talk about, and your body is, you know, optimizing its own metabolism, your BMR is going to go up. It's going to go from 2,000 to 2,200 to 2,300. Like, you're actually going to burn more calories at rest. And that's what we're talking about here. We're not talking about like getting healthy for your high school reunion or looking good. We're talking about like just being healthy, feeling good for the rest of your life. And I think blood glucose, and we'll get into this a little bit, but that's the basic concept. 17 minutes a day, man, could affect the other 23 and a half hours hugely. So just, even if you were a little bit more disciplined for, let's say, 7 or 8 minutes, let's say that you have a bad habit of eating a ton of processed foods, junk foods. So you're 17 minutes, you're 20 minutes, you're putting the wrong stuff in your body. Well, so what if your new rhythm was just maybe one meal a day to clean? So you're going to be, you know, eat for energy instead of just for that pleasure, one meal a day. Your body would change over time. So that's what we're talking about.
I like the fact that we talk about attention in this module. I think is really important, because, like you're saying, it's 17 minutes a day, but man, how much attention are you even paying during those 17 minutes? Like we talked about last week, as I was giving this example of meditation, we're so often lost in thought and thinking about the future that maybe you crave the cheeseburger, and as you're eating the cheeseburger, you're off somewhere else. You're not even experiencing the cheese. Maybe you experience the first few bites, but I think a lot of us eat mindlessly a lot of the time, or we eat out of habit, or like you said, for that dopamine hit, or we get triggered into eating a snack, or so, like something makes us sad and we have this habit of going and eating. Like, it's connected to our mental health for sure. And just by paying more attention, you can solve a lot of your dietary problems. Start to watch yourself. Start to watch your own habits with food. Like, what are you actually putting in your body? And when you're putting it in there, are you even experiencing it? Because it may only take a few minutes of discipline each day to really have an outsized impact on your overall physical health. So that's awesome. I love that. We're not huge fans of diets around here. I've heard you say that. You don't love diets. We speak more about rhythms of life and rhythms of eating. So unpack that a little bit for me. What is it about diets that you don't love? Or why do you think rhythms are a better way to frame this?
Yeah, I think so many of us have tried diets, or we've dieted before. And it again, it's a short-term fix. It's a Band-Aid solution on the problem, instead of just finding a healthy rhythm for eating, like changing your mental approach with food. And so I tell you what, like, eating healthier, eating less processed food, eating less junk food is going to so stabilize just all the chemicals in your brain and how you feel in the morning about attacking the day versus the day attacking you. It's not just physical. It is mental, but I mean, if you're on like keto, okay, because we talk a lot about carb fasting. We talk about like the fat switch, which I want to get into in detail here, because this is, to me, one of the most exciting things, ever, is that our bodies have a switch. Our bodies have a fat switch that most of us didn't even know we had, and it can be turned on and off. And it's like the dimmer switch, when you walk into a room, it can be on a little bit or a lot. And so I think like a diet is just a short-term solution. It's great for, again, getting ready for your 10-year high school reunion, but we're talking about feeling good for the rest of your life and just having enough energy and building muscle health span. So I think, while I don't want to bash particular diets, certain diets are very unsustainable. I think, like carnivore. I think keto is very hard for most people. However, I do know some people who swear by keto and they love the fat burning effects and all their biomarkers are great. But once you start walking down the keto path, you got to stay on that path. Like when you come off of it, that's when hormonally things change. You don't have a ton of metabolic flexibility on those types of diets, and super heavy carb restrictive diets. Our fat switch is turned on almost all the time. And we talk about metabolic flexibility, which is just the body's ability to burn fat or carbs for energy based on what's available, and how it's very healthy. If the metabolic system is the foundational system of the human body, and we have the digestive, the circulatory, the cardiovascular, we have all these different 11 or 12 major systems of the body. The metabolic system, I believe, is just that's the most important one, because it's the one that we can control. It's the biggest lever, and it affects almost every other system in the body. So I think if you can, from a diet perspective, if you're on a diet, a particular diet that's working for you, then great. But our approach does not require a diet. It just requires a mental shift and turning on the fat switch, because most of us want to lose weight, but really we should be losing fat. And when we lose fat, we'll lose the weight anyways.
Well, that's what I want to get into, because you mentioned earlier, the classic advice for losing weight is calories in, calories out. Just eat at a deficit. Eat less than you spend, and your body will start to shed weight. And that's true. Like, that is true. But there's more that you can do. You can be more precise, because the body doesn't treat every calorie the same. Depending on where it came from, what kind of calorie it is, it'll be treated differently by the body. So I want to get into the fat switch, because I don't think a lot of people have this understanding that the body discriminates between energy sources and what it would take to actually start using fat for energy in your body. So let's dive into the fat switch. Help explain that for people. Exactly what the process is from when food enters your mouth to how the body uses that for energy and how it relates to fat loss.
Yeah, well, essentially, so some people have heard the term macros before, and a macro is the protein, carb, or fat. So essentially, we have three big categories of macros, and there's fiber, which isn't really considered a macro because it's undigestible. But for the most part, almost everything we eat is either part protein, part carb, part fat, or a mixture. So, and the body's preferred energy source, always without exception, is the glucose in the bloodstream. So if we have glucose in the bloodstream, it wants to use that first for energy. If I get up when we're done here and walk down to the hotel lobby and I have glucose in my bloodstream, I'm using that for energy. Okay. That's my primary energy source. Now there's some glycogen inside my calf muscles and my quads that are going to help get me in, right? They're going to burn a little bit. But I think that's the big thing, is that, it doesn't, so the body doesn't really want to use, let's say, protein for energy. It wants to use protein to build muscle. Okay. And we want it to do that. So it's carbs, fat, then protein, way a distant third. So I think the important thing with the fat switch is just how the body processes carbs then, because some people think carbs are the enemy. And if you've keto or carnivore, carbs are the enemy. Carbs are not the enemy. It's excess carbs. I think most Americans, I mean, most of us are just getting too many carbs in our diet, and it's the wrong types of carbs too. But essentially, when we eat a carb, when we eat a donut, when we eat potatoes, when we eat any carb, pizza, hamburger, our body's going to turn that into glucose in the bloodstream. So it immediately converts it to glucose in the bloodstream, but it can only hold a very small amount of glucose in the blood. Okay. Then it takes all that excess. So most of that carb will be converted then to glycogen in the liver, okay, and the muscles, okay. And the liver can only hold about 100 grams. So there's this little fuel tank in the liver, and you know, it wants to take that glycogen and convert it back to glucose and help us use that as energy. So that's like the reserve or the primary energy tank, if you will, okay. And the fat switch concept is very, very simple. Whenever that fuel tank drops, the body starts burning more fat. And it's never like fully on or fully off. It's not like a human being is walking around burning 100% of carbs. There's a very small percentage of fat probably being used. But for the most part, it's pinging like 95%, not 98%. And what we want to do is we want to, a few days a week, we want it to be ping the other way. We want to be using fat primarily, like 90%, because that's how we lose fat, especially the visceral fat between our necks and our waist. That's all the fat that we want to lose. So it's a very simple concept, and it's basically has everything to do with you know, running that tank on empty a little bit, like lowering the tank. And so we recommend carb fasting, which, you know, some people have heard of carb cycling. So having like low, mid, and high carb days. I think it's much easier if we just have like no to low carb days. So a few days a week, we're just abstaining from carbs, or we're eating really fats and proteins. We're still going to get a small amount of carbs.
What would low carbs be? What would be a carb fasting day?
20 to 30 grams or less.
Yep.
I think with a keto diet, you know, people are probably getting 20 to 50 grams of carbs a day.
Which
but
is
most
pretty restrictive.
of their
Like it's pretty easy to blow that budget if you're not paying attention. If you've never tried carb fasting before and you suddenly try and you start looking at labels and like, well, how many carbs are in this? You'll realize like 20 to 50, that's a pretty low budget for sure.
Yeah, it's a low budget, but I think, but I also think it's a sustainable way to eat long term, because when we do that and we mix in any type of movement, next week, excited to talk about move, you know, how to build muscle and improve oxygen in our bodies. So if we combine carb fasting with any type of movement, that's just going to deplete the tank even more and turn that fat switch on even heavier, essentially.
Yeah.
Yep.
We've kind of talked about this as being like the holy grail of fat loss. Like step one, if you're trying to lose weight, is you could eat it at a calorie deficit, and that you will lose weight if you continue to do that over time. Might not all be fat. You might lose some muscle mass along the way. If you want to amp it up again, then you implement carb fasting, start restricting your carbohydrate intakes strategically, so that you are depleting the stores in your liver of glycogen. Your body gets forced to start using fat. But if you really want to kick it up, then you implement movement, some kind of like high intensity interval training. And that kicks your body into overdrive in terms of depleting those glycogen stores. So this is like simple economics really for your body. You are reducing supply for energy and you are increasing demand. And as you do that, your body will drain through its stores in its liver of glycogen and will have to switch to fat burning. And so if you really want to see results, you probably want to combine all three: a calorie deficit, carb fasting, and movement as well, which is why I'm excited for next week when we talk a lot about movement.
Yeah, not too big of a calorie deficit. I wouldn't recommend, because the body can go into starvation mode. It can, you know, by not eating, it can actually, you know, it's the fight or flight response, and like cortisol, you know, increases, and we store everything then as fat. So I think it's healthiest. So what's happening? I believe what's happening when somebody goes on keto, let's say, is they're probably eating at a calorie deficit slightly, because what are they eating? They're eating proteins and fats, and you have to eat a lot of proteins and fats to maintain your BMR, to maintain your basal metabolic rate. Like if you're in a 2,000 or 2,500 calorie a day diet, you're eating a fair amount of proteins and fats, and you're full. Proteins and fats make us full, and carbs so we don't get that same feeling. You know, it wears off quickly, 15, 20. So 20 minutes, even a half hour. And I think the simple science behind this is blood glucose. Right, is when we're eating carbs, the pancreas produces insulin, so insulin people are unsure of what insulin is designed to do in the human body. It's really designed to help to transport that macro into energy, right? And it's designed to help our muscles actually use what we're eating for fuel, for energy. And so we can become insulin resistant, like diabetics. But you know, in my head, I don't have diabetes. So why would I ever be interested in blood glucose? Well, you should be. Blood glucose is the one thing that you want to maintain consistent levels. You do not want these major spikes and crashes. As part of these sprints, I get a blood glucose monitor, and it's ready back in Ohio at the pharmacist. I'm going to put this on this week, and I'm going to wear it for the next 2 weeks. Yep. So I'm going to pop this thing on, and I'm going to have an app on my phone. I'm going to run all these tests over the next couple weeks to show the community how eating certain foods, like, you know, in the morning, first thing, or with or without like berberine or apple cider vinegar. So these are things that can highly reduce a blood sugar spike, which means the body's going to produce less insulin, which means it's easier on the pancreas, easier on the liver. And that's what we talk about with carb fasting. It's not just losing weight, but you're actually helping the liver out. You're giving the liver a break. You're giving the pancreas a break. And these organs will heal themselves. Some people have fatty liver disease if they drink too much alcohol, or, you know, so I think it's just a very healthy way. You get all these benefits from just one small adjustment in your diet. But even if you're not diabetic or pre-diabetic, or it doesn't run in your family, high blood pressure and stroke and certain types of cancers, like regulating your blood sugar should be a main concern of your long-term health, because you're not going to have those big crashes. Like, you're not going to eat that huge lunch with a bunch of carbs and then get that massive crash, you know, that spike and then crash where you're gone the rest of the afternoon, like brain fog, and you just feel like crap. You need to take a nap. We want steady, sustained energy all throughout the day. We want our body's metabolism operating smoothly and cleanly and improving over time.
Mm-hmm. So talk a little bit about, you know, one of the questions that we get from people who are trying carb fasting for the first time is, well, what should I eat on my carb fasting days? We're so used to shoveling carbs in our mouths that the thought of spending a day with low to no carbs is actually leaving us scratching our heads. So we had a special gift that we gave away this week. Maybe you want to talk about it, our cookbook that we put together.
Yeah, we put that. So let me first, the cookbook's amazing. We're getting some great, and we're going to make some small improvements to the cookbook. Make sure that we put serving sizes in there for most of the meals, and it's in there for some, but not for all. But yeah, super excited about the cookbook. I think like for example, you know, in years past, I'm going to go back 5 years ago. And I remember going out to California. I had a meeting with this guy who works for a big company, and we had lunch, and they brought salads in. And the next day they brought salads in, and the third day they brought salads in. And this part of California, Orange County, they probably eat healthier in general than people in Northeast Ohio. Like, they're eating salads almost every day for lunch. And, you know, I like salad. I don't love it. And I knew it was healthy for me, but I just couldn't really get into the salad for lunch thing. Okay. Mentally, right? Because I didn't directly know how eating a salad with some chicken, some grilled chicken, was really helping me long term. But I'm telling you, this fat switch idea made all the difference in the world. So now on my carb fasting days, our family, the Clement family, basically carb fast Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays pretty consistently. I'd say Mondays and Wednesdays like religiously, and Fridays pretty consistently. It was 3 days a week for me consistently. I dropped a bunch of fat, increased muscle mass, right, improved energy. So now it's basically 2 days a week. So if you have a bunch of weight to lose, you could do 3-4 days a week. If you have a little bit of weight to lose, a few days a week. If you have no weight to, like you, Tony, don't have your body fat percentage, last time I checked, was under like 10%, isn't it?
Yeah, it's pretty low. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty low, like 8%. So I don't mean to brag with you, but yeah, you might carb fast 1 day a week. I know you're experimenting with some keto stuff right now that you're going to get into. Yeah. But I think, okay, if I'm carb fasting on Mondays and Wednesdays, I'm going to wake up in the morning. I do my Admin routine. I'm going to make sure I get my water. I'm going to have some coffee, and then I go to the gym. Okay. Or if you don't go to the gym, go for a walk. Walking is one of the most incredible things you could do, because it's that steady state cardio, which burns fat. That lowers the glycogen in your liver, so liver incredibly efficiently. So 20 to 30 minutes. But I go to the gym, I come home, I have a protein shake, and my protein shake has very little carbs in it. You got to watch with protein shakes, pre-made or powders. Look at the carbs, because not all protein is created equal. So make sure you're getting just a max of a few grams of carbs. Then when lunch rolls around, I'm actually excited to have a salad with chicken or kofta.
Wow.
I'm using a balsamic or a vinegar dressing. I'm not putting, because again, like you could put one little ramekin of dressing on your salad, and that's 25 to 30 grams of carbs. You got to pay attention to what's going on. But I actually enjoy that meal. I really enjoy it. Every bite is enjoyable because I know it's not just healthy. I know it's actually helping me deplete the glycogen in my liver and forcing my body to activate the fat switch. Like, I know it's happening. And that's the beauty of this, is that's why it's so encouraging and powerful. And then throughout the afternoon, I might have a snack, some cheese, or beef jerky. Again, you got to watch what's in the ingredients. Maybe some nuts, but again, nuts can have carbs in them, but healthy nuts, whether it's some almonds or cashews. And then for dinner, and so it'll be a protein. It'll be a steak, a fish, a chicken with some leafy green vegetables. And then that's a pretty good, that to me is around 20 grams of carbs or so a day. And what I've noticed, so we talk about the Lumen device a little bit. I wanted to bring this up because
I was just going to ask, how do you know what your body's burning?
Yeah. Well, you can pee on ketone strips, and you can sort of like do some things, and you go to the doctor and get a blood test, and you could put the CGM on your arm, and when your glucose is low, the body's more efficient at burning fat. When your glucose is higher, it's burning more carbs. It's not using insulin properly. But I use the Lumen device. So the Lumen device is a little device that looks like a vape. So we created a video at the beginning of the week about this. And I started using this a few months after I started a carb fast. And for me, it was a game changer because it added a visual, real-time gamification component to how my body was processing foods, fats, and carbs. So you blow in this device, it measures the carbon dioxide in your breath. Okay. So a lot of carbon dioxide means your body's burning more carbs. Lower carbon dioxide in the breath means it's burning more fat. So it basically, you blow in this thing, you hold your breath and you blow out. And then it measures from 1 to 5. So like 1 is what you want, typically, if you're carb fasting, especially. 1 means you're burning like 90% or more fat for energy right now. Okay. Whereas a 5 would be like 90 to 95% carbs. And there's everything in between, 2, 3, 4, 5. And so what I see in real time, is so if I carb fast on a Monday, if I blow in that thing on a Monday morning, I probably didn't carb fast Saturday and Sunday. So I'll probably blow a 3. Okay. Like my body's 50-50. I carb fast on Monday. On Tuesday, I'm very likely blowing a 1 or a low 2. So my body, it's like telling me you're burning more fat now because of what I ate the day before and my activity the day before. And then on Tuesday, I might eat a regular carb day. It could be a 1, 2, or 3, and occasionally it's a 4 if I do a heavy carb loading day or something. But it's just a very easy to use tool to tell me which macro my body is using for energy.
That's awesome. That's great. I want to get into, we've had some questions come up in the community, and I think maybe some misconceptions as well that I would like to address. So one of them was somebody reporting that I tried carb fasting. I felt dizzy and faint that first day. I was just really hungry, and that's not normal. You probably shouldn't.
No.
My suspicion there is that, I want to just remind people that carb fasting isn't the same thing as fasting. You're not just abstaining from food. And so if you're eating at a severe calorie deficit, if you're just not eating enough, then you probably will feel dizzy and faint, right? So carb fasting is about strategically reducing just carbohydrates. You don't need to stop eating. You don't need to starve yourself. So if you're feeling weird, dizzy, faint, make sure that you are in fact eating enough calories. And the second thing I would say is to stay hydrated. Make sure you stay hydrated. So as your body switches from burning carbs to primarily burning fat, you are going to expel more fluids and more electrolytes, and you need to be replenishing those, not just drinking water, but find a good electrolyte, not like a Gatorade or some other thing that's filled with sugar, but a good, clean electrolyte mix that you can add to water to rehydrate, because if you've got a headache or you are feeling sluggish at all, it could be that you're dehydrated as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I think
Greg,
water, Tony, that's why Adam is so important. Just making sure you're getting 2 glasses of water in the morning, like, cause that's going to kickstart the entire day. You are dehydrated when you wake up. Just think of it that way. Like we're not so hydrated because we just lost 1 to 2%. We lost a pound or 2 pounds of water weight during the evening. And so we are dehydrated. So that's why it's important, 1 or 2 glasses of water, 2 glasses of water. And you could put pink Himalayan sea salt. You could use electrolytes. You could use Celtic salt. Brecca talks about Baja gold salt. So you want to like not just water. So water's great, but add a little bit of electrolytes. I love electrolytes. And that's just a good way for me for my body to maintain that hydration, and then headaches go way down, or headaches so disappear effectively.
Greg, talk a little bit about, because I've seen some confusion around this. What exactly is meant by net carbs and fiber, and how do those things relate? You mentioned just briefly earlier the body doesn't digest fiber, but how does that relate to somebody trying to keep track of their carbs and like, okay, I'm trying to stay under 20 grams net carbs. What does that mean?
So I'm going to use bread as an example, because we all love bread and rolls and even some pasta, right? So let's just say a bagel has 35 grams of carbs in it. Okay, high carbs. So one bagel in the morning could be setting you up for disaster the rest of the day, right? If you're just eating a bagel. And like we talk about wrapping your carbs, so eating fats or proteins before you're eating your carbs, because it puts a wrapper around. Like Jessie and Shaspe in her book, she talks about wrapping your carbs. It's an ingenious idea. Apple cider vinegar. I love berberine. Berberine has a dramatic impact on blood glucose and helping you regulate it for the positive. But net carbs is very simple. There's 2 companies, Hero Bread and Royo Bread, that we buy consistently in our house. A little bit more expensive, but the bagels that might be 30 to 40 grams of carbs are like 3 or 4 grams of carbs. So like now I'll say it's almost as good. If you've ever had like gluten-free bread, it's not quite as good, but it's way better for you. The same thing here is that they load these bagels with fiber. So fiber is undigestible. So our bodies will not digest it, and it passes through the digestive system basically unchanged. It can actually be like a probiotic in our small intestine. So it can actually help us in a myriad of ways. But I think that's the key, is like take whatever your total carbs are, take your fiber away typically. So 20 grams of carbs, 15 grams of fiber, your net carbs will be 5 grams only. That's the amount of carbs that's going to get digested and impact your blood sugar and converted to glucose and glycogen, essentially, is what's happening. And there are some things we're going to do some cool videos on resistant starches. So this is a super cool concept, a resistant starch. Like if you cook your rice, let it cool. If you cook a baked potato and eat it, it has X amount of carbs in it. But if you cook it and let it cool and then reheat it, it has it turns into a resistant starch. So it's less calories and less carbs, which is just crazy. Like the
that
structure
was wild
of
to me. It sounded like magic when you first told me that.
Yeah. So resistant starches are a cool concept, a little bit more advanced, but again, I mean, cook your rice, let it cool to room temperature and reheat it. It tastes the same, but it's less calories, it's less grams of carbs, it's a little bit healthier. There's different sugars we're going to be creating a series of videos around, which have like 90% less calories and less carbs, and the body cannot digest them, like monosaccharides versus polysaccharides, and it's just really cool. Like this is a little bit next level stuff. Like the basic concept is carb fasting, trying to reduce the amount of carbs we eat a few days a week to lose fat and lose weight. But then there's these cool ways that you can do that. And the carb fasting cookbook is one of them. Like that's one of the biggest questions that we got is, man, what do I eat on carb fasting days? So our team, like Jonah and Kelly and Danny, worked super hard for a long time to put this cookbook together, and we delivered it to the community, and it's amazing. It's an amazing, like, we're very proud of it. We're going to make a few tweaks to it, but it gives you 25 or so recipes for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. that fit in that carb fasting lifestyle. So whether you're doing a keto, like if you are on keto, you could use our recipes to help you live the keto lifestyle. We say the carb fasting lifestyle is a better way to go because it's just way more sustainable, way easier. So there you have it.
That's great, man. A couple last questions. This was a pretty common one. Was what are some good low carb substitutes for some of our favorite foods? So I just have a list here that I put together because this, you know, like I mentioned, I've been doing this kind of carnivore keto experiment the last few weeks, and I've been asking the question myself: what can I substitute? I love pasta. I love rice, and so here's a couple of my favorites that I've found. So instead of rice, riced cauliflower is super low carb and almost indistinguishable once it's in a dish. So if you're doing like a stir fry or something and you just swap out the white rice for riced cauliflower, which you can get frozen bags of it or whatever, very similar texture, very similar flavor, but way, way, way less carbs than something like white rice. Instead of pasta, you can noodle your zucchini. So you can get these little devices that will like shred your zucchini into noodles, and it will have, again, the same kind of texture as pasta, but super low carb. Instead of potato chips, I love salty, savory snacks, but potato chips, super high carb, easy way to blow your budget. So instead, I've been having like baked cheese crisps and or pork rinds that are flavored as well.
Yeah.
And then instead of tortillas, I love tortillas, burritos, tacos, that kind of thing. You can swap your tortillas for like lettuce wraps, which I know doesn't have quite the texture of a nice chewy tortilla, but it can get you through a carb fasting day in a pinch for sure. Lettuce wraps. One question I thought was really good, actually made me do a bit of thinking, was what about if I'm vegan or vegetarian? Because I'm not, so I can eat bacon and cheese, and I can eat all kinds of animal products. But if you were trying to avoid that, what are your options on a carb fasting day? Here are a few that I came up with, but any that you have as well, Greg, feel free to chime in. Avocados, you want to make sure that you're getting enough fat on your carb fasting days. You don't want to just be having protein because you want your body to be switching to burning fat. You need to supply it with some fat. So avocados are a great source of fat. Again, riced cauliflower, like a veggie stir fry you could do with a riced cauliflower. Chia seed pudding using almond milk. So you like soak the chia seeds in almond milk overnight. My wife loves to do this. She has it pretty regularly. She makes these chia seed puddings. Tofu, if you like that, that's low carb and an option. Nuts, like we mentioned before. And then for snacks, things like celery, pickles, or bell pepper sticks, something like that you'd be able to snack on. So again, I'm no vegetarian or vegan expert. Maybe you can come up with more ideas than that. And if you have some, put them in school. Let the community know, because we'd love to.
Yeah.
That's the best thing about this, is like sharing what's working for you. But yeah.
Yeah,
so
no, Tony, I agree with all of the above. And even for wraps, like Hero, specifically the company Hero Bread has a super low carb wrap that is delicious with like a breakfast burrito. If you're going to put like eggs and bacon and cheese and some salsa in there and wrap it up as a breakfast burrito. If it was just a regular breakfast burrito, you go to the restaurant and you order, it's probably 25 to 40 grams of carbs.
Absolutely.
This is like 4 or 5 grams of carbs. So you can't get creative. It's just about being a little bit more intentional. And if you agree with us, like that's 17 minutes a day is setting up the rest of your life. Like that's going to have direct impact on mood levels and weight gain, weight loss. Tony, we just did a big survey. We surveyed 1,000 participants. We had this third party, the company run this for us a few weeks ago. And most people, it's like 96% of people said they'd rather be healthy than wealthy. And they also said they'd rather be healthy than happy. So most people want, like, so many of us put this high, we value health. Well, I'm going to ask you, are you interested in your health, or are you committed? And you'll spend a few more bucks potentially buying these low carb, Hero or Royo, but are you interested or committed? And I think that's a big differentiator. And I just think it's like we're giving you all the tools and information you need to have this dramatic impact on your health. And it's like we're in the middle of H40. We're in the middle of this sprint. Some people in the last sprint said they fell behind. My sister-in-law, for one, said, she like week 2 or 3, she fell behind and she didn't do the rest of the sprint. Really, the focus of this sprint is for you not to be perfect during these 40 days. Yeah. Like how we communicate these ideas to you, we take 6 weeks to communicate them so you can indoctrinate them, you can assimilate them into your lifestyle. The more important thing is at the end of this sprint, now it's like, what's the 40 days look like after the end of the sprint? That's the more important 40 days, just to maintain and take these ideas, take the nuggets, apply them in your life and be healthier, be physically and mentally healthier. I think that's huge.
That's awesome. Well, we are at time. That's all of our questions for this week as well. I'm excited.
Cool.
Tomorrow, the new module is going to drop. This one is Move. And this week is going to be all about falling in love with movement, helping to see exercise as something that we get to do, not something that we have to do. We're a firm believer that our bodies are a gift, that movement itself is a gift, that this world is here to be explored, and that we're supposed to be moving around. And so we're going to dive deep into that. And there'll be something for you no matter where your fitness level is. If you can't do a single push-up, that's all right. There'll be something for you. And if you want to go intense in the gym, we've got something for you as well. So stick around, and you'll get an email notification tomorrow when that module opens. And we'll see you in school. And have a great week.
Thanks, Tony. Thanks, guys. We'll see you.
Bye. Okay, the stream has ended.
Cool. Good job, dude.
Thanks, man. You too.